Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Welcome to Ask Rob and Rob. 2 questions, 2 answers. You know how this works. You also hopefully know how to get your own question in. But just in case. Rob?
Super simple. Just pick up your phone, go to the website, go to propertyhub.net/ask and get your question in that way. It's super simple. And if you mess it up, you can record again. But I'm sure you won't mess it up and you'll nail it just like Karen has.
Hi, Rob and Rob. My name's Karen from West Sussex. I've got some money, 175,000 that I've got to put towards my first buy-to-let. Unfortunately, the house prices in my area are really expensive, and I know it's not a great thing to buy a property further afield from where you live. I'm just wondering, could I buy a commercial property and turn that into an open-plan apartment or something like that? Or what would you advise for my first buy-to-let? I don't really want to get a flat, but house prices are expensive and I just don't feel like I've got enough money to go forward with that. And it's a bit worrying. Any advice would be really welcome. Thanks so much. Bye.
Karen, thanks for your question. I'm going to challenge you a little bit, though. You've said that investing elsewhere is just something that you wouldn't do, but you consider as your first buy-to-let, taking a commercial property, changing its planning conditions and refurbing it into a home. I know which one sounds easier to me. I currently, this never used to be the case, but I currently don't have a buy-to-let property within 50 miles of where I live. But I've got a few buy-to-let properties. But the thought of having to convert a commercial property into a residential property just fills me with dread and fear. And I don't necessarily think it's I'm right and you're wrong or vice versa. It's just what we're more comfortable with. Maybe on my side, I shouldn't be so fearful of a conversion, but I just don't want to get into all the hassle. I just want an easy life. And maybe investing away from where you live isn't so scary if you do a bit of research and put a bit of effort in. Because if I can do it, and Rob can do it, and many other people we know can do it, then investing away from your home doesn't have to be too daunting. Now, the way to make it easy for yourself is just go to an area that's still an hour or 2 drive away, so you feel like you can get to it. It gives you that emotional comfort that you can get to it if you need to. And just pick a big area that you're familiar with that you know will have a strong rental demand. Or go for one of the big hitters further afield, like Birmingham or Manchester, because the amount of money with a mortgage would allow you to invest in a really good property in one of those areas. But they are major economic powerhouses as cities, so a pretty safe bet over the long term for buy-to-let. Now, if you've got experience with refurbs and you're pretty handy and you've got loads of contacts, then ignore me. Go ahead with what you're going to do. That could be a great way for you to progress. But if you don't have that, then put your time into research and effort into understanding how you can reasonably passively invest further afield. And that's the general advice to give to anybody listening, is refurbs can be brilliant, but don't go into them lightly, particularly if you don't have the skill set. If you have tradespeople that you know and trust and you can work with, even if it's not your skill set, then fine. Again, crack on. But it's not something you should do lightly. As somebody who's built 14 houses, I can tell you it can be pretty painful. And I know building houses is a bit beyond doing a refurb, but you're still having to deal with tradespeople, you're still having to deal with problems, and it can be both financially and emotionally stressful. Whereas investing further afield can be emotionally stressful if you don't know what you're doing. But if you don't have the skill sets I've laid out just before, or the contacts I just laid out before, then it's probably worthwhile focusing your attention on researching instead, because that's something that most people can do, and get yourself into a good position where you're more confident to move forward.
Great answer, Rob. I mean, everyone has different things that make them uncomfortable and that they find difficult. And it could be that for one person, doing refurbs is well inside their comfort zone, but doing anything to do with managing remotely just isn't. And that would be fine. But Karen, that sounds like that's not the case for you. And it sounds like you've absorbed a lot of opinions about what you should do and what you shouldn't, rather than coming to those views yourself. And that's not a criticism. Most people are like that when they're starting out in property. But I think doing the research to test those opinions and come to your own judgment about what's going to work for you personally has got to be the way to go. Okay, let's head overseas for our second question.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Marcus here from Sweden. I'm an avid listener to your show, and I really appreciate that you keep me updated in the property arena. I have a question. Do you know of an app which can be integrated to a bank account so it's easy to see how each individual property is performing? If not, is there another good way to see this instead of setting up an account for each individual house?
Marcus, thank you for your question. Do I know of any apps that you could integrate? Not as such, but there are two ways I can think of cracking this. The first is to do what I do, which is to use Xero, Xero, for my bookkeeping and use what it calls tracking categories to separate out each property. So what that means is you set up each property on there. Every expense or income line you assign to a given property. Over time, it can recognize them and suggest which ones it should go to itself to save you some effort. And then you can have your whole P&L broken out by property. I've got a bookkeeper that does it, but unless you've got a gigantic portfolio with loads of transactions, it wouldn't be difficult to do that yourself. Another way I think you could technically do it, although I haven't tried this, is that if you use wise.com for your bank account, they let you spin up extra accounts really easily. So you could have a separate account number and sort code for each property without all the hassle of going and opening those accounts and potentially paying a fee on each of them as well. I still think that would be overkill, but it's something you could do. So I don't think, Marcus, there's anything out there that is tailor-made for what you're trying to achieve, but I think either of those options that I've outlined should get you to pretty much the same place.
Well, that's us done for another week. Make sure you join us on Thursday for the Property Podcast. And of course, we'll be back on Tuesday with Ask Rob and Rob. So until then, take care, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.